G'day guys, this is Amiga back with another video, and I'm here to just discuss issues surrounding Imam Tawhidi. And obviously people have a lot of questions for me, and there's a lot of arguing and stuff going on the videos that I've put up, and people wondering why I'm putting them up and all this sort of stuff. And then we've got Muslims engaging them and they're arguing, and there's all this sort of stuff going on. The reason I am posting Tawhidi videos, now that's a good question. People think, what is Amiga doing? Is he a sympathizer? Is he that naive to think that somehow he can bring or help bring Islamic reform throughout the world, in the current situation that we find ourselves in? Here's the answer, guys. The reason I am posting Imam Tawhidi videos at the moment is because there is no conversation, no meaningful conversation going on in Australia, no honest conversation about terrorism. That is why I am posting this stuff. I am trying to incite a conversation. That's what I'm trying to do. When you've got the head of ASIO coming out and saying there's absolutely no connection between terror and immigration, when every terrorist attack that's happened in Australia, I think the last 4 terrorist attacks that have happened, including Francis Chan and Lint and all that, have all been immigrants, every single one of them. That's the calibre of the leadership in this country. When you've got the ABC coming out and, at any cost, trying to shut down any conversation, at any cost trying to silence Tawhidi, and just adhere to the new norm. And the new norm, it seems, is to shut down any conversation at any cost, and when there is any meaningful conversation, to be so outraged nothing changes. And that is one of the big issues. And the ABC have come out on Media Watch and all this other stuff and try to discredit Tawhidi. But as people have rightly pointed out, and I think Tawhidi pointed out, he's a Shia Muslim. I mean, you have to understand that 90% or over 90% of Muslims are Sunni, and they don't even recognize Tawhidi as a Muslim, let alone an imam, let alone somebody, who can be registered or verified or anything like that under their banner. And they're sort of claiming that we are the Muslim establishment of the country. He's not recognised, he's not this, he's not that. But they don't even recognise him as a Muslim. Tawhidi is recognised under his own religious banner of Shia Islam. And I've seen photos of Tawhidi with the Ayatollah, and the Ayatollah placing his hands on Tawhidi's head, either blessing him as an imam or just blessing him in general. But he is a recognised figure in the Shia denomination. There's no disputing that. And at the very least, he has the right to identify himself as a Muslim. Therefore, if he's speaking out as a Muslim or an imam, he should be taken seriously, I think. These people don't have the right to say he does not have a voice at all. So now, and the thing is, he is coming out, he is risking his life to get this conversation happening. And believe me, if it were up to me, if Islam disappeared off the face of the earth tomorrow, I'd be a happy man. Believe me, that's where I stand on that. I really do. But I also am a man who takes every individual on their personal merits. So I do know a lot of Muslims personally, okay? Now, Tawhidi he seems like a great guy. He is a really, he's very, very charismatic, which makes him perfect to get this, debate happening. He seems like a guy that I could probably sit down and have a coffee with and have a conversation with. not going to judge people solely based on their religion. But just as a lot of Muslims have, said on the channel, terror is a misinterpretation of Islam. Okay, thank you, because that's the admission that there is an ideological issue with the text. Okay, if this text can be misinterpreted, there is an ideological issue. Now, personally, I think it goes far, far deeper than that. I think the hadiths and scriptures in the Quran are a massive issue. And it's not just misinterpretation. Some of these scriptures themselves are a massive issue, but therein lies a huge problem, especially if we're looking at Reformation, because, whether you're a Shia or whether you're a Sunni, you cannot change the verses of the Quran. That will never, ever happen. Believe me, that will never happen. And reform in all the other major religions, which has taken place. That's why we don't see rampant violence by other religions all over the world. And I'm talking about rampant. And if you think you have an argument against that, just have a look at terrorist attack statistics and which religions are involved. It's very black and white. It's very straightforward. I mean, there were 5 or 6 attacks last week, all propagated by one religion. Okay, or the misinterpretation of that religion for those who want to lose their minds about that. But there needs to be a meaningful conversation. And if there is not a meaningful conversation, things will never actually change. And I've got some news for you. History repeats itself. Okay, if you want to have a concise or an educated sort of opinion on this, you have to understand history. And one of the reasons I am trying to propagate this conversation happening, right, in society is because if it is not, things will get much worse, okay? Now, I've got kids, a lot of you got kids, even Muslims who are listening have children, and they don't want violence. I mean, we just saw a 12-year-old girl blown to bits or killed in Baghdad. I mean, I actually legitimately feel for that man. I mean, losing a daughter must be absolutely horrific. But let me tell you something. If the Sunni extremists or Shia extremists or whoever they are think that the West will just lie down, that they can laugh and say, well, we can do this and we can do that and the silly Westerners will do nothing, I've got some news for you. It's called history. The West will be pushed so far. Then what will happen is they will vote in a leader. This leader will, there'll be an extreme response. And what will actually happen is instead of us dealing with the perpetrators, the extremists, and maybe having an honest conversation about the ideology, what will happen is everyone will get thrown into a barrel. A lot of innocent people will get hurt and killed. And it'll be an absolute cluster. That's what will happen. If you look at the inception of Islam and the spread of Islam, it went so far, and then the response, we had the Crusades. Millions of people died because they pushed, and then the West pushed back. And the thing is, the West are armed to the teeth. The West have the technology. The West have all the means to fight this war. And even though the Islamic community is large, they won't stand a chance, mate. And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see it happen in my country. I don't want to see it happen in England. I don't want to see it happen in any country. I really, really don't. But the only way we can avoid this, catastrophic outcome, and believe me, it will happen. It's history. This is what happens. Is to have a meaningful conversation. And it's just being whitewashed. It's being shut down. The left just shutting down any meaningful conversation about this. And we need changes. We need them right now. We need changes, for example, I believe that we need to bring back the death penalty. We had two guys who were convicted, who were prepared, who had the means in place and the will, and were going to commit the largest terror attack in Australian history on Anzac Day. Now, what do you do? Do I really want to pay taxpayers' dollars to keep these guys in jail for the rest of their lives? No, I don't. I think that anyone that is directly involved in a terrorist attack, perhaps I should say if somebody has perpetrated a terrorist attack and been caught, they should be put to death. They should be put to death. But really, anyone who's involved in the preparation of mass murder, we can all say, oh, they haven't actually committed the act, Amiga, so putting them to death is extreme. But what happens when if those two weren't stopped? They've carried out an act, hundreds of people die. So what are we supposed to feel sympathy for these guys? We're supposed to mollycoddle them and then just, say to the families, oh, it was all, too bad. We just didn't do anything about it. So I think we need to bring back the death penalty. Convicted terrorists should be put to death, and that should be a precedent. I think that anyone who is caught, with radical or terrorist material, if they have immigrated to Australia, they should be deported mandatorily. And if they are Australian, they should be jailed with a very, very hefty jail sentence at the very least. I think we need to look at where funding is coming from. I think Tawhidi pointed this out. Funding coming from extremist countries, if you see a mosque that is being solely funded from an extremist country. Now, what is an extremist country? What's the definition of extreme? How about putting people to death for insulting the Prophet Muhammad? You can imagine in the Australian sphere, if people were put to death, they had the death penalty for insulting a religious figure. That's extreme. Women who are sent to jail for being raped, that's pretty extreme, don't you think? And then those countries are directly funding mosques here in Australia, espousing the same ideology and teaching the same ideology and spreading it throughout our country. I think that if mosques want to operate in Australia, they need to adhere to our values. And I'm not talking about, there are some issues which are a matter of opinion, okay? They're a matter of opinion, but I'm talking about, ideologies which espouse violence, mainly. Violence towards women, and violence towards, non-believers, and that type of thing. It really does need a review. And people have rightly pointed out, of course, Tawhidi will say get rid of the Hadith because it's a Sunni book. Tawhidi will want all of the Sunni books removed. He'll want them all taken away. They are very violent books. These chronicles of the life of the Prophet Muhammad are just, if that's the most perfect way to live out Islam, there's your ideological issue right there. That it's a massive thing. But even in the Shia denomination, there are some books which exist which are, tantamount to the Hadith. There are some books which exist in Shia Islam which are, a problem. And you can't forget that Iran is a Shia country. Hezbollah is a Shia organization. Iran has said that the way forward for, this is coming from the top, the way forward in the Middle East is to wipe out Israel, to completely, a genocidal attack on an entire nation. And that's coming right from the top. And they're Shia. So, I mean, Tawhidi is as a Shia, he is quite left. He's a minority within a minority. I saw that in a comment, and it's true. He is a minority within a minority, and he is the one trying to bring reform. But, to be realistic, guys, reforming Islam across the world, even if it was possible, would take hundreds and hundreds of years. And like I said, I take my hat off to Tawhidi because he's getting this conversation going, and we need to have this real conversation because there are real issues. And, as a individual, as a human being, he seems like a really nice guy. And there are some really, really nice Muslims out there, but it doesn't negate the fact that there is a massive ideological issue within Islam. This needs to be a conversation, an honest conversation. There needs to be changes made now, as I've said, to avert a catastrophic outcome, which, quite frankly, the way things are going seems inevitable. And I don't want to see that happen. You don't want to see that happen. None of us want to see that happen, I hope. And if you do, you're just as bad as the extremists. Guys, please support the channel. All of my videos are being demonetized by YouTube, so I don't even bother anymore. So please hit the PayPal link on the banner. If you're on PC, you can see it there on the banner, and make a contribution, because I sit up late at night answering all these comments, getting hammered day and night, and it would be nice to get something back for all the misery I'm, all the misery that gets thrown my way. But I think it's worth the effort. I think it's worth having the conversation, and I'm going to continue to incite the conversation. This is Omega. I'll be back soon with another video. Cheers.